for listeners and viewers who don't know, tell us a little bit about iFixit and how the company that you founded came about. Because I think iFixit, the creation of iFixit, in some ways, is sort of the genesis, in some ways, of the right to repair movement itself.
Sure. Yeah, I worked in high school. I worked at an Apple Authorized Service Center, so I knew what the repair ecosystem looked like. And I remember I was making
Inside the Death Star, yes.
yeah, so I was making $6.50 an hour, and I saved up all the money I made in high school to buy an iBook. That was my computer for school. And of course, a couple months into school, I dropped it on the power plug, and it was wiggly. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just look at the service manual. I'll open it up. Grandfather giving me a soldering iron when I went to computer science school. He didn't know this software. He didn't know the difference between electrical engineering and computer science. He's like, here's your soldering iron to go to software school. So I start pulling the machine apart and realize it's complicated. There's latches and tabs, and so I looked for the service manual, could not find it anywhere. Muddled my way through the repair, kind of barely succeeded, and then kind of went down a little bit of a crusade, like why isn't the service manual online? And I found the digital traces that the manual had been there, and that there had been DMCA takedown requests sent by Apple's lawyers. So then I'm like, okay, there's a big company who's using legal threats to prevent people from knowing how to fix things. That just struck me as wrong. And knowing at least a little bit about copyright law, I said, well, if I write my own service manual, they can't stop me. And so we took the computer apart again, took apart a few other computers, wrote service manuals, posted them online. They got very popular, and then we figured out we could kind of build a business around that by selling the parts and tools. So we kind of created an ecosystem to replace the ecosystem that Apple had taken offline.
When did it move from that kind of solving a problem, filling a need, and starting a business around it to this kind of broader idea of like, well, there's actually there's a right here that should exist that's missing, right? That this isn't something that's articulated in the law, and yet we need it.
So we were working at systematically replacing the ecosystem that Apple had kind of smushed. And we got to the point where we were actually comprehensive. We had service manuals, parts, and tools online for every Apple product. And then we started doing it for other manufacturers. We opened it up as a wiki. And iFixit is this, vibrant and growing community. We've got repair manuals that our community has created for over 60,000 different products. But we found that we couldn't keep up. So there was a few factors. One was the community cannot recreate manuals for products as fast as manufacturers can create products. And then also we started running into obstacles with things like a proprietary screwdriver or special software tools that manufacturers would create. And we realized that if we really are going to achieve our mission of enabling everyone to fix everything, we're not going to be able to do that purely by crowdsourcing it. We have to have some input and collaboration from manufacturers. So the first thing I did, way before we started thinking about right to repair laws, was we just started reaching out to manufacturers and saying, hey, do you want to work with us? We've got the system, it works well. What if you did the same thing in silence? And so then I was like, well, what if we could give them a carrot? And so we went to the green standards, these eco stickers, and we started engaging in the standards and saying, hey, can we give manufacturers voluntary points for making service manuals available or for making batteries easy to replace? And I naively thought we'll provide some kind of cool, friendly way to work with them. What we didn't realize is this concept of regulatory capture, where the manufacturers had already infiltrated the green standards process, and we're not going to allow anything innovative in those standards whatsoever. So I wasted 5 years of my life trying to make repairability a factor in green environmental standards in the US, and it still isn't there. It's not the case. We completely failed. We fell flat on our face because Apple was there to systematically sabotage it.
What was the moment of like clarity for you on that?
I remember there was a point where we said, hey, let's propose a criteria where you get extra points if you use commonly available tools. And Apple said, well, there's no way you could possibly know what common tools are for working on smartphones. And I said, absolutely we can. I've got a repair manual for every smartphone in the world that I wrote. Let me just mine the data. And I gave them a spreadsheet, and I was like, here, you can see it's Torx T5 and then Phillips 000. These are the common screws. And Apple would not accept a list of commonly available tools unless it included the pentalobe screwdriver.
Which only they use.
Right, because there's enough iPhones sold that, of course, this is a commonly available tool, right. And they just vetoed it entirely unless it included there. And so that's where it's this. Okay, this whole thing is a joke, and that really was what prompted us to say, let's just go to legislation. These companies have no interest in having a voluntary conversation, and that really is what has started.
When was the first law proposed?
Yeah,
Yeah. When was that?
the first law that was proposed was in South Dakota. I think maybe in 2012, 2014. It's been a while. Yeah, we had this super badass lawmaker in South Dakota that wanted to get it started, and then it's just spread by wildfire. It's amazing. You would think like we're like coordinating every state that introduces laws. No, we have no idea. Like some legislator in Indiana will see the template and introduce a law, and we're like, cool. Sometimes they make changes that we would have never anticipated.
Yeah. What I like about this is that is right. Like there's sort of a template law, and then people can pick up on it. In some ways, you know, business interests have done this very effectively through groups like ALEC, right? Of just having kind of broad outline laws that individual legislators and states can introduce, and it's all kind of done for you. It has been really effective. I will say, right to repair has not been quite as effective as the business community in getting some of these laws passed, but I do think things are changing. And so we've seen, the past few years that the number of states doing this has just skyrocketed. I think, 20 plus states each year. And what's your sense right now of what the state of play is with right to repair getting passed at the state level as a right?
Well, we have huge momentum now. So we've been introducing bills ever since the South Dakota bill. Every state, every year, more and more states introduce bills. And at first they were dying in committee. Then we started making it through committee, and they die in different areas. So in every state that we have a bill introduced, Apple and John Deere and others come in and they hire the most expensive lobbyists that have not only extensive connections, but they're also making political contributions, and they find some way of killing it. Sometimes it dies silently in a secret committee, like a rules committee or something. But every year, as it gets introduced multiple times, people get more familiar with it. We make a little bit more progress. We were really close in New York last year, and then just ran out of time. In Washington State, we made it out of key committees. We were ready for a vote, and then ran out of floor time. So we're increasingly close. The state of play right now is over 20 states introduced right to repair in 2022. Many of those have run out of time, but many are still going. Colorado has a wheelchair-focused right to repair bill. Minnesota's been working hard on it. Yes, Massachusetts is moving along. New York is looking promising. So we have more momentum and backing. This is because you have the Biden administration supporting it. The Federal Trade Commission actually helped make edits and changes to the draft bill. So it's been really well vetted and thought through. Now we just need one state to cross the finish line.